In this video, we're going to talk through why my call center failed. So my name's Tyler. I own a company called Scaleops and a brand called Agency Aid. We have helped over 500 insurance agencies to grow and scale by staffing virtual assistants and fixing back office problems. And I saw an opportunity. You know how it goes in entrepreneurship. You see a problem in the market, you decide to come up with a solution, and that's where a business comes from. And there's a lot of people that offer cold calling in commercial insurance, but really no great solution providers. Nobody's just way above the rest of the competition. And so I felt like this was the problem I was going to solve. So called a really close friend of mine in the industry and said, hey man, can you send me a list of X dates? I'm going to hire these callers, train them, and have them dial your expiration list, and we're going to try and book appointments. So in commercial insurance, if you're not aware, typically you have a 1-year policy. It's 12 months. Sometimes you'll have a carrier like Cincinnati or whoever that you get a 2-year or a 3-year policy, but generally it's 12 months and then it expires, and typically you renew with the same agency. So the strategy is you call 60 to 90 days prior to renewal, book an appointment. So he sent me a list of X dates in his area, in his classes of business. And so I hired a couple of guys that had been working with me inside my agency previously. Keep in mind, this is a virtual assistant staffing company. So everybody knows what I do. They know that I'm staffing virtual assistants that are not here in America, because that's how we're able to provide a good service. We are lower cost than what somebody locally will be, but we have them trained, etc. And so the math I thought was a no-brainer. So I'll walk you through the process. So for his average commission, again, so in commercial insurance or in the P&C world, a lot of times we call this revenue. That is the actual commission you get from the insurance carrier. He's going after accounts that are $2,500 to $10,000. That is his target bullseye. This is what I want. And so with that math, I was going to charge $100 per booked appointment. Even if he only has a 10% close rate, that math still works because he's paying $1,000 to at least make $2,500. And so that works out, and that will scale infinitely. And so then what I was trying to do is hire cold callers that are pretty low cost and effective for me so that everybody's happy. If I'm charging $100 per booked appointment, hopefully I'm booking at least 1 or 2 a day, and the math is going to work out. And so I hired 2 guys, both of them out of the Philippines, and they had some decent success early on. At first I was like, man, this is going to be a home run. And my buddy thought so as well. So referred us a lot of his friends. I never advertised this and had a dozen people wanting to work with me. So I was like, man, I just invented money. We are going to be printing it. Honey, go plan a trip, buy a purse, whatever. We're done. And a lot of times in business, that's not how it goes. And so what we started finding is these were not good appointments. The gentlemen that were booking them were just pushing so hard to get something on the calendar. A lot of times they were booking follow-ups, not actual appointments. And so our quality was crap, and that's not going to work. Insurance is super small, so I can't risk having my name messed up. And also I don't want my clients paying $100 for an opportunity to follow up with a client and see if they're even interested. So that obviously didn't work. And so I started down the path of really trying to figure out how to make this business work. And so the first kind of piece that I started coming across as I hired more people was a glaring problem, which was accent. So I had to do several things. So at first first problem that I found was tracking. So the first set of dudes I trusted. They had worked for me. I was like, well, they booked appointments for me. It should work for them. But I left out the fact, or didn't consider the fact, that people are probably assuming that if you're calling a virtual assistant staffing company, maybe the people are virtual assistants themselves. And so the accent was a little more okay. But for an insurance agency that's calling commercial prospects, pretty decent size, I mean, all of these are doing multiple seven figures a year in revenue. So they're all going to be savvy customers. And if they hear a Filipino accent, they are hanging up the phone. That is not what they want. They want a local agent to service their account. So I really had no idea what was going on. I didn't know the problems. I didn't know what was happening. So the first thing I had to do was add in some type of tracking. So call recordings and KPIs. So recordings is self-explanatory. I had to be able to listen to these calls and figure out, where are things going off the rails? What's not going right? And so that's when I figured out that these guys were just ramming people into a booked call when that's not actually a real appointment. And then the next piece was KPIs. And so I needed to start tracking every metric inside the business. So how many dials are you making per hour? On those dials, how many contacts are you having? On those contacts, how many times do you transfer to a decision maker? And then after that, once you get a decision maker, how many appointments do you actually book? And so there's 4 numbers, pretty easy to track 4 numbers, but they tell me a lot of things. And so dials per hour, that's just effort. How much effort are you actually putting in to pick up the phone and dial somebody and call them? If you're not hitting your KPI for dials, that's an effort problem. That's a character issue. We got to remove you. And then there's contact rate. So this is going to tell me if the person is using a bad phone number. So sometimes your phone number can get blacklisted or burned if you're making too many calls, or the service provider thinks that you're spam. And so we weren't having these issues. So dials were good, contacts were good. But what I found was the decision maker transfer. Like once we got somebody, the transfer to the decision maker was terrible. So I started honing in on this piece and had to figure out what was going on. And the issue number 2 that I found was accent, probably to no surprise to most people. Like I mentioned, the accent was a little more accepted when these guys were calling and setting appointments for my company. Keep in mind, these are inbound leads. They're reaching out to us. So it's a little more accepted because you know who you're calling. And so that was not super hard to pick up on. Most people would probably assume that this was going to be an issue. Maybe I'm just slower than the average Joe. So it took me a little while. So accent was a problem. So what we started doing is, rather than going offshore, we went near shore. So these are BPO terms for people in the VA space. Essentially, offshore would be India, Philippines, places like that. Near shore would be Latin America, Mexico, etc. So I started hiring people a lot closer to the States. So the Spanish accent is a lot more widely accepted here in the US, just because we have so many people that speak Spanish here. And so a hint of accent where it's a Spanish speaker is a lot more widely accepted. But also, when you go near shore, you have a lot better chance of finding somebody with little to no accent. And so this did improve things. We started having better conversations. We went further in the initial conversation and didn't just get hung up on immediately. So as you're able to get further and further along, now what we started finding was we were having trouble transferring from the decision maker, or from the gatekeeper to the decision maker. And so we got a whole lot of voicemails. And this kind of brought about the data piece. So number 3 is going to be data quality. So we can call a ton of businesses each day, and even a broken clock is right twice a day. So you're going to eventually get through to some decision maker. Some gatekeeper is going to be in a great mood, and she's going to transfer you over to her boss, and you might get the opportunity to set an appointment. But if you're not calling the right people, and if you're constantly getting the gatekeeper, your odds of success are very low. So what we have now started working on is how to enrich data. We've not gotten there yet. We don't have this piece nailed down. Once I figure this out, the business model is a lot more likely to succeed. But trying to find the actual decision maker and get through to them is a massive piece, because gatekeepers are knocking us down at the knees and causing this model not to work. We're having some callers that are having a lot of success. Again, Latin American, and they sound great. They're having a lot better success rates getting through. But we're just not getting to have enough conversations. Another piece that we've had to fix is people that are too pushy. So you've probably heard, or if you're in the real estate space, there's a lot of people hiring callers out of Egypt as well. And so we tried going this route. The problem that we found is these people are way too pushy. And so some of our conversations were getting through from the gatekeeper to the decision maker, but these people are just pile driving to book an appointment. And the decision maker is just kind of getting frustrated or saying, whatever, I'll let you book an appointment. But then they're not showing to these appointments. And so that causes another issue. So people aren't going to keep paying us to book appointments. If they're just one-legged appointments, you're just sitting there staring into the void in a Zoom meeting where nobody else is joining. So we had to make sure that our caller quality is still solid. So these people have to have experience. They need to be able to handle objections and push. But if you push too far, your meeting quality is going to go down drastically. And so just one more lesson that we had to figure out. And then the fifth piece is going to be similar to number 3, data quality. It is data quantity. So what we've seen is when you have a caller actually going through, making dials, having conversations, the guys that we were working with were sending us 200 to 400 X dates. Well, if my requirement is that they have to dial 200 people during their shift, they're going to go through that list in 1 to 2 days. Now, obviously, there's a piece of follow-up. You need to keep calling these people, follow up with the decision makers, etc. But what are you going to do? Call for 6 days? Now we've got a month of just calling the same people, and you're going to have no success that way. So data quality and data quantity seem to be the biggest pieces. So quantity, we've somewhat figured out. Rather than use their list, we're scraping lists ourselves, and we're pulling more people. We're trying to stay within the class codes that they want to do business in, but we just have to pull more of them and need to go a little bit wider in the radius around the agency's location that we're pulling from. So that's one solution. So that's 5 pieces that I learned and why my call center failed. So with that being said, I still think there's a great opportunity here, and I have not given up. We have went through and hired another round of callers. We've kept some of our best people, and we're going through the process of cleaning up our data and then enriching that data to make sure we can make better calls. So this is a business that I have not given up on yet. The version 1 definitely did not work. And so entrepreneurship is a whole lot of failures. 90% of small businesses fail, and I can count iteration 1 of our call center as a failure. With that being said, we're consistently improving. Every single week we are getting better. And so I do believe that we're going to find a way to make this business model work. Now, possibly we don't charge $100 per appointment. As we get going, we'll see what the true cost per booked appointment is going to have to be in order for me to pay a cold caller, make some bit of profit, and make sure that the agent is getting really good appointments. So there's a number in there that it makes sense for everybody. I'll still be able to make a little bit of profit, or at least not lose money per appointment. We'll just see if that number that I have to charge per appointment is something that the market is willing to bear. So I will make another video and keep you guys in the loop with the progress inside this company, but I'm trying to do a little bit of building in public. Hopefully you can learn from some of my mistakes. If you're an entrepreneur, comment below with struggles you are facing inside your business. Myself or my team will try to reach out and help in any way that I can. If you're an entrepreneur who feels like you're drowning inside of your business and you don't know how to go through this process that I did to clearly limit down to what are the defining issues or restraining factors inside the business and pinpoint those problems, go to my website, scalemyops.com. I would love the chance to get to chat with you, help you figure out where your bottlenecks are in your business, identify what you can do to overcome those, and get back on the road to growing your business. So thanks so much for watching this. I will see you in the next video.